privatization is critical for Ukraine economic's future. My guest has great deal of experience and knowledge about privatization in a similar market. My dear friend, Mirjana Perko. Enjoy.
Big fighter, that's for sure. All my life, I still am. So you have to be blunt. I'm anti-corruption. You know, I'm allergic to corruption. Corruption is hurting the economy and every citizen in the country itself. There are a lot of opportunities in Ukraine. How do you value the companies that you are privatizing? Corporate governance should be on a professional level, not really, and this is very hard to do. We had like 30% returns. I really wasn't scared of anything after that. I will go through this. I will win. You know, it makes a fighter out of you. You know, you have something to fight for. There was privatization going on, and I can say I've never earned so much money, and I never had so much. I said, okay, we will keep this baby. So my son is now already my parents that gave me unconditional love. Whatever happens, you will be happy. Succeed. You have to be true to yourself. Don't try to be someone that you're not.
Mirjana, good morning. Great to see you this morning and welcome to my new show, Don't Ever Give Up.
Good morning, Henry.
Thank you very much. I know you're in Slovenia right now, is that correct?
Yes, right. You know, it's Corona and we are still at home.
Yes, we're still stuck, and I'm taking advantage of every opportunity when people are still at home and not between the airports. Mirjana, we always start the show because it's all about inspiration. With your backstory, how did you start? Where did you start? All the way back to your childhood, and how did that childhood form you of, or put foundation of who you are today?
Actually, I can say, you know, I was always the best student in school and everywhere. But then in the last year of my university, I got pregnant. Yeah, I didn't finish at that time, and I said, okay, we will keep this baby. So my son is now already grown up, and this is the best thing that ever happened in my life. But at that time, it was quite a shock, you know, because you have to give up everything that everybody else is doing. But I finished on time, and I finished my studies on time. Then, when my son was 1 year old, I was left alone, you know, so no revenues, nothing. My partner, we split up. So it was a tough time for me. I got myself a job, and then I started and I did a license for business appraisals. And when he was 2 years old, there was Yugoslavia separated, Slovenia separated from Yugoslavia. And I decided to start my own company.
Wow.
It was like very small wage, you know, small child, being on my own, but I started my own company because
no income at the time coming in.
No. So, and it was really a decision where I have to really, you know, give the best out of me. You know, I was many times reinventing the wheel, but in 1 year, I had 10 employees. We were doing business valuation. There was privatization going on, and I can say I've never earned so much money, and I never had so much fun at that time.
I'd like to stop here. So I obviously, as you know, have a teenage daughter. She's 18, going on 25. But obviously, this is shocking. You're roughly a teenager, maybe barely out of it, on your own, right? So how that experience of, that's a life shock where you have to change any plans you had prior of finding out that you're pregnant to completely different direction of your life. So how's that moment of transition? And I would immense stress. How did it shape you as a woman you are today?
I think it makes a fighter out of you, you know. You have something to fight for. You know that there is a baby, you know, who needs your everything.
Totally dependent on you.
It depended on me, and you know, you're on your own. And I got this like really fighting. I was always a fighter, but that was even something that was really driving me. And I said, no, I will not give up. I will go through this. I will win. You know, I will do something out of myself. I will not let this moment put me down, but you know, it should be uplifting. And it did, you know, I really wasn't scared of anything after that.
So the lesson here that I have learned in my experience, I never been pregnant, never will be, obviously, but the point, the experience itself is very similar, where is your back against the wall. First, you need to survive, Maslow pyramid of needs, right? Then as soon as you figure out, yes, I will survive, you start aiming for a very high unattainable goal, which seems at the time. Am I wrong?
Yeah. Yeah, you know, and I had a high goal. You know, it wasn't like I would just survive. I said I want to be the best. I want to be really good. So we were really doing good job at that time. And there's another thing which I think is very important in my early life. You know, one thing that I had in my life was my parents that gave me unconditional love. This is so important. You know, it's even if the times, you know, when you know, you're doing your best, you know that you're doing that for them because they are giving you the support.
Right.
You also know that if you fail, you have somewhere to go. I would never, you know, I would do everything not to make them feel bad about me. But I knew that if I fail, I have somewhere to go.
There was
They will not judge me.
There was unconditional safety net, which is always critical to have, at least in your mind. It doesn't take anything away from how hard you have to work to get to where you want to be. But having that safety net is obviously very important. And
Yes.
that's great. So moving to the business component of your life, you started the business, breakup of Yugoslavia, Slovenia separates, becomes a different country, privatization starts. How did you first see this opportunity?
Trying to take care of yourself and, you know, making the best out of you. I was looking for what to do so that I could use my skills the best. And I always wanted to travel. And I ended up, you know, in finance because I got a scholarship from finance. So I had to deal with finance because that was my, you know, the bank that gave me the scholarship. And I just, you know, say, okay, I know this, I know that. That was the opportunity. I was the youngest in the country which got this license for business appraisals.
So basically, you started the business where the privatization happened by applying and getting certification that gives you the right to appraise the value of the business. That's
correct.
The foundation of your future.
Yeah. That was my company, you know, but it was not easy. It was, I have to study I was really studying all nights, you know, to get to it. It wasn't like, okay, I just got it because I'm smart. So I would go to study, how do you calculate, for example, beta, and, you know, how do you get to this data? And I would go around and ask people. And actually I was doing calculation of beta for all the, you know, many other appraisers which were much older than me. I wasn't afraid to start something new, but when you start something new, something you don't know, you have to go into details. You have to go into, you know, like you have to understand the last atom of it to master it. And I did that, you know, even though I had my baby, you know, he was there. I started to study at 10 o'clock and I would study until 2-3 o'clock. That's fun. Luckily, you are young and you can do that. But I wanted to master it, you know, and then you have the self-confidence to do it.
Right. So there's no substitute for the strong work ethics, is there? Right.
No.
I always told my kids when they were growing up, and it doesn't matter how talented you are, if you don't put the hours in, your talent is only going to be limited to what it is today, or, you know.
Absolutely.
Great. So as you grow, obviously you were one of the early ones to see the opportunity in privatization within Slovenia. And this is kind of my shift or segue into Ukraine because it's obviously 20 years behind. But at the same time, you saw that privatization happening and you saw opportunity for much bigger scalability of your already established business at that time.
Yeah. So when somehow I had this company for 5 years, and then I said, okay, I don't want to. I was young, I was unexperienced, and I was consulting, you know, big directors, and many times I was reinventing the wheel. So then I got my ex-husband, you know, we got married, and things, you know, smoothened up. You know, life became went to its normal. But still I wanted to do something. So I said, okay, maybe he has his own company. I will just go somewhere to get a job. But you know, if you have this mindset of an entrepreneur,
A freedom,
getting
the
it,
entrepreneurship.
and yeah, getting a job is not just going there, you know, from eight
9 to 5,
to four.
yes.
Yeah, yeah. But you want to want to do something. You know, you're being innovative already also in the company. So I applied for a fund management company where I was promoted in a couple of years to a board member, and I was the director of the largest investment fund there. And we were really doing the best. You know, we were best from all the fund management companies. The fund that I was also running, we had like 30% returns year after year, 5 years in a row.
Wow.
So it was 3.5 times the initial investment in 5 years. And then but we had some, you know, it's always some politics in things. And I said, okay, I'm a CEO in the next term or I go. So my husband told me, he said, you know, whatever happens, you will be happy because you need something new. But if you're a CEO, this is a new thing. There was like, oh no, you cannot be, you know, you're a female. It was a little bit of political who is going
Yeah,
to
it's,
be
it's the
on
gender.
top.
There was a gender issues, I'm sure, in former Yugoslavia. There
Yeah,
was
yeah,
political
it
issues.
was. This is also one of the topics I would like to continue talking with you further on. But yeah, it was a little bit gender, but I think it was also more, I didn't know how to, you know, you have to lobby for
Right.
that kind of position. You have to have someone who is backing you up. And I was just, you know, I can do everything, you know.
Right. So, I mean, a lot of people, as you told me in personal conversation, a lot of people rely simply on their personality or their experience and knowledge, where experience shows me, as well as what you have said, that playing politics, understanding the networks and communication within the organizations which you want to be part of is critical in order to get to the right process. I always start by asking the advice, and it gets me into the relationship. That's my tactic.
Yeah. It's something you also, if you want to you know, come to the top, you need to get I would say wider not recognition but wider acceptance or wider support than just, you know, people around you.
Absolutely. So
So
in privatization in Slovenia, and you and I talked a little bit about it over the talks that we had. What were the biggest lessons that Ukraine can take out of from what you have experienced, where you were one of the leading individuals in privatization in Slovenia? Ukraine is about to put 3,000 government-owned enterprises onto the block, on the auction block. What should Ukrainian do?
yeah,
What do, I should say.
I think the privatization model that we had was looking back, it was quite good because it was like 60% of the company can go to whatever, you know, either also the internal, so the workers, and 20% will go to the pension fund, and 10% to restitution fund, and 10% was for I don't know, I forgot what was the last one. So it was a good split. And it was like a soft, if some companies were privatized internally, you know, but you have to, at the end it shows, you know, sometimes the workers would sell their shares immediately, and some companies are still being well run by you know, the employees themselves.
So in this, what you have said, there's a multiple players involved in privatization that has obviously the investor side, which is in your case, owns the majority of particular enterprise, and the rest is being split between the government employees of the company and the potential pensions of that company and the citizens of the country.
No, pension fund is on the level of the country. So it's like
Right.
Also now this pension fund is contributing to the pension system.
To the pension system of the whole country, all of the citizens of the country.
Yeah. Because we are if when I got retired, we don't have a pension system on the company level. It's a pension system of the country.
So that's something that Ukraine also has, obviously, as many people are struggling right now with the just basic compensation. Regular citizen, senior citizen in Ukraine is getting roughly $70 a month. I mean, it's hard to live on, obviously, because of this.
Yeah.
So, and this is why important, such a privatization as is happening now or about to happen in Ukraine, it's critical to involve the social the society as a whole into the conversation. And right now, this is not part of the conversation.
Mhm. I mean, this part is the good, providing that that the management of that kind of pension fund is being professional. So that there is always if this is under the government, that the government will try to influence to the last resort, so to the company level, who is going to be director there, whatever things. So it should be managed professionally. So they should be managed so that they get the highest output out of it. Not that this is a political tool to have like a long hand
over
the last control of the company. So corporate governance should be on a professional level, not and this is very hard to do.
It's very hard to do because it involves not only actual transaction between privatization and investor, but because there's so many stakeholders involved, we talk about stakeholder economy, you have to think several levels down and up to make sure that everywhere there's a governance, there's transparency, and interests are aligned, primarily towards the citizenry of the country. And this is very difficult to do.
Yeah, and also, you have to have some sort of a measure how, how do you value the companies that you are privatizing? So that's also, and we did that. There was a agency for privatization, and I was like the certified appraiser from the agency of privatization, and the methodology that we were using, it was discounted cash flow. So it was it was a very professional. It was not something like just okay, we will do like
it's this and that.
So it was very well done. I can say that.
That's excellent. And obviously, right now you've been to Ukraine already a couple times. And what's your impression of the country in general before we get to specifics?
There are a lot of opportunities in Ukraine, and it was you can see that the Ukraine was somehow suppressed because of the war with Russia, because of so many issues. I think also corruption is I'm this is my passion. If there's something my passion, I'm anti-corruption. I'm allergic to corruption, and I support women's.
Right.
I said already, but how to deal with corruption? There are many ways. How you can eradicate corruption, or how you can improve things if there is a will.
And well, we really hope that your experience will be very helpful because as you and I are working on bringing World Trade Center to Ukraine, which we'll talk about in a second, it is critically important, I believe, that people like yourself are involved in the transformation of Ukrainian economy, people who have experienced this in private and public sectors of the similar type of economies, which is important. So how do you think, how critical the experience is in matters like this?
I will give you one example, for example, which is a very good example of how corruption is hurting the economy and every citizen in the country itself. Singapore, has a very big port, and it's not cheap. So Malaysia built a more modern, much better port, very close to it. So a lot of companies which were in this business, they would move to Malaysia for, because they gave them better terms. After 1 year, those guys returned to Singapore. You know why? Because these guys couldn't handle, that, okay, I have a cheaper, docking or whatever, but I have to bribe every single person there so that my cargo is being, put
so official price is low, but
yeah, and they, even though it was better, like modern, people will return somewhere when they don't have to deal with corruption.
As you know, everything we're doing is built around 3 words: economy of trust. And your message, an example of Singapore, Malaysia now, is critical. And Ukraine, as a country that is struggling with that trust internationally and domestically, how's World Trade Center as a brand can help the country?
I think, also if there are some tools introduced which can make the financial transfer safer, and I know that we are doing on that, I think this can bring some transparency, which is also very important. So who you are dealing with, you know that there is some network which is working on certain principles of transparency, of of trust, and that is something that will bring investors. Every investor is the most scared of the thing that he will lose their money, because he cannot trust the system, that the judicial system is not working, that that he will work with some people who will try to get him. Yeah, no, you said it.
So how's the World Trade Center as a brand can help that to help solve that problem?
I think World Trade Center as a brand is a trust. It implies a trust. I don't say that you don't have to do your homework once you do that, but you go somewhere where you feel familiar, and you understand the way how things work in such a building. And I think investor will feel safer, and this is important. Safer coming there, having overview of the companies that they can work with. Who are they? They know that someone has already checked on these companies a little bit, and somehow if something goes wrong, he can also turn to someone who can help him if needed. So you have to make investor feeling safer when coming to the country, especially to a country which doesn't have a reputation of being
the most transparent one. Let's call it.
Well, yes, and I think you are. I can see that you are working on improving all matters. So this has been seen, but still, this is a way you cannot change this overnight.
Okay, great. Well, coming back to the last part of our interview, which is rapid questions, if you were to name a person, excluding your mom and dad, parents, who made most influence on you in your life as you are today, who would that be? Public or person in your personal life?
I mean, not directly, but I'm thinking about the world as it is today, and it's really polarizing and dividing. And one person who really was good is Nelson Mandela. I know it sounds like cliche, but I was thinking,
Nelson Mandela?
Yes, he united the nation.
He was uniter, right? He was.
Yeah, and we need leaders like him. I think the world is really, really lacking leaders like him who can, bridge those gaps and bring people in the world together. Not doing this division, which is it's a bit scary today.
Yeah. Actually, it's funny you said that, because my interview a couple of days ago was a gentleman from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Ukraine. He said the same example, the same question. He gave the same answer of Nelson Mandela. Obviously, he's a great example of somebody who unites. Next question: what is the most important leadership qualities for you?
I think you have to be honest to people, even if the truth is not pleasant, you have to be, you have to say what it is, because if people don't understand what is behind, they will misjudge you. So you have to be blunt, okay, in a nice way, but you have to be blunt. So you have to be honest to you first, and then to other people. Yeah, transparency for sure, so that's something. Integrity it's important.
Okay.
And being persistent, being a fighter. Don't give. Yeah. No, I see. Don't give up. Yeah, you should know what you want and go for it. So don't give up at the first stone, which you have to be able to pick yourself up when you fall.
Right. It's not how many times you fall down, it's how many times you get up.
Exactly.
Absolutely. And your story, beginning of our interview, is fascinating because it is a story that most men can never really experience it, right? And this is fascinating because, I'm living with a woman who gave birth at 16 years old, my wife. And it's amazing how she got where she got with that type of change of life event. My last question of the day, last question of interview, I always finish with that question, is if you were to summarize your life up to today's interview, how would you describe it?
I think I was a big fighter, that's for sure. All my life, I still am, but and I would many times sacrifice business over life. I think I'm now better in balancing work and life, and one important thing is I also learned that if you want to succeed, and if you want to, you have to be true to yourself. Don't try to be someone that you're not. You have to find what is intrinsically in yourself, the one that makes you you, and be that person. Not trying to please others. Try to be authentic and be you. And this is something that takes some time to evolve, you know. So I think I'm now more me than I was maybe some time ago.
Well, I'm so happy you said that, because all my life, starting with my parents, everybody tried to change me somehow and shape me. And I am such 100% believer in what you just said. Just be yourself. Always be yourself. But yeah, I want to thank you so much for your time. This has been
It was a pleasure.
I'm very glad that a lot of people in Ukraine will hear your message, and I really hope that we'll see you here in Kyiv very soon. And please stay safe.
Thank you.
So,
Stay safe too.
thank